The chicken was still half frozen when she said it. She stood at the sink, staring out the window like she was watching a storm roll in. I was beside her, microwave door open, one hand still holding the plastic tray. That weird silence had crept in again, the one that had been haunting our house for months. And then, out of nowhere, "Let's take a break." I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I didn't even blink. Because the truth is, I'd already left her in my head weeks ago. She just didn't know it yet. I put the frozen chicken back in the freezer, walked past her, grabbed my keys. I didn't even take my coat. No suitcase. No toothbrush. Just walked out the front door in my house slippers while she stood motionless at the sink, still looking out at nothing. You might think I was angry. I wasn't. I was hollow, numb, and strangely relieved. I drove for hours that night, no direction. Somewhere around midnight, I parked at a gas station and sat on the curb next to the dumpster behind the building. A guy in a delivery truck tossed me a half-warm energy drink and said, "You good, man?" I nodded even though I wasn't. Not remotely. I didn't go back home. Not the next day. Not the next week. Not ever. And I didn't call her. She texted that night, "Lowell, where are you?" I didn't answer. The next day, "This isn't what I meant. I just needed some time. Please, just call me." Still nothing from me. That was the first time in our 12-year relationship that I didn't do what she wanted. You want the truth? I used to bend like paper for her. Canceled plans, sold guitars, gave up my dream job 3 states away, all to make her feel secure. And she still made me feel like I wasn't enough. So yeah, I disappeared. Into silence. Into the cracks she never noticed forming. Took her 2 weeks to show up at my brother's house crying. He didn't let her in. A month later, I heard through a friend she was spiraling. Quit her job. Moved in with her mother. Claimed I abandoned her. But I didn't abandon anything. I just stopped waiting for her to choose me. And what she never expected, what wrecked her, was that I didn't chase. Because she thought I would. She thought I'd grovel. Apologize for misunderstanding. She thought I'd sleep in the driveway if I had to, like I did that one time after our biggest fight. But not this time. I gave her the break she asked for. I gave her freedom. And now, she's broken. Not because I left, but because I never came back. You want to know what she did after that? Trust me, you don't expect it. But I'll tell you in part 2. Let me know if you're ready. I didn't think she'd go this far. I was crashing in an old cabin my uncle hadn't used in years. Tucked away up in the hills where cell service flickers like a dying bulb and the air smells like pine and forgotten things. I was just trying to breathe. To sit with silence and let it unravel the knots in me that had been pulled too tight for too long. I hadn't planned to disappear, not really. But the longer I stayed gone, the more I realized I didn't miss her. I missed who I used to be before her. But she wasn't done with me. Not by a long shot. 2 weeks after I walked out, a photo of me showed up on a Facebook page I didn't even know was still active. It was grainy, taken from a distance, probably at that gas station the first night I left. Captioned, "If anyone has seen my husband, please reach out. I'm worried sick." Worried. Sick, right? That same morning, my cousin called. Said she'd come to my old office, crying. Told my boss I'd gone missing after a fight. Claimed I might be unstable. Said I'd left under mysterious circumstances. The woman who told me to take a break was now painting me as some poor lost soul who wandered off and needed rescuing. But that wasn't the worst of it. The real disaster happened the day she drove up to my parents' house. Now, I hadn't spoken to my folks yet. Not because I was hiding, but because I wasn't ready to explain why I didn't want to go back to the life I'd spent 12 years pretending was fulfilling. They didn't even know we were on a break. So imagine the explosion when she showed up sobbing on their porch. I heard about it the next day in a voicemail from my dad. Calm but clearly shaken. "Son, Hattie came by. Said she's worried about you. She's confused. Honestly, we are too. Maybe you could come down and talk things out. I don't know what's going on, but she's scared. Says you just disappeared. Said you've changed." Yeah, I had changed. That was the point. She made it sound like I had cracked. Like I was some shattered man unraveling in the woods. But I was the clearest I'd ever been. I wasn't the one unhinged. She was just watching the strings she used to pull go slack for the first time. A few nights later, I got another text, this time from her friend Nadine. We were never close, but she always pretended to like me when we crossed paths. Lowell, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but she's not doing well. She misses you. She talks about you constantly. She said if you won't come home, she's going to come to you. And I believed her. Because Hattie never liked losing. Not in arguments. Not in board games. Not in love. And I was starting to think she wasn't going to let this go quietly. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I sent her one message. Just 3 words. You ended it. She didn't respond. But 2 days later, she found me. It was late afternoon when I saw her car creeping up the gravel path to the cabin. The tires crunched slow and cautious like she wasn't sure if she was welcome. I was standing behind the screen door, coffee in hand, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Part of me expected her to come eventually, but I didn't think she'd find the place this fast or have the nerve to actually show up. She stepped out wearing the same oversized cardigan she always wore when she wanted to seem fragile. Her hair was tied up loosely like she'd rushed. She scanned the porch, then spotted me through the door. No wave. No smile. Just her hand over her chest like she was short of breath, eyes full of something I couldn't quite place, panic, maybe. Or desperation in disguise. I opened the door but didn't step out. How did you find me? She took a few hesitant steps forward, avoiding eye contact. Your cousin. He didn't mean to give it away. I asked the right question at the wrong time and he slipped. I'm sorry. That word, sorry, sounded fake already. Polished. Rehearsed. I waited, arms crossed, not offering anything. Not even a chair. She looked around the place like it offended her. This is where you've been? Yep. For how long? Long enough to know I like it better than home. That hit her. Her lips twitched slightly like she wanted to cry, but her pride wouldn't let her. Then she shifted her tone. I thought you were hurt. Or worse. You just disappeared, Lowell. No one knew where you were. I didn't know what to do. You told me to take a break, I said. I took one. It's not my fault you didn't mean it. She looked like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the angle. Her eyes fell to the porch floorboards. That's not what I meant when I said it. I was overwhelmed. I was angry. I just needed a pause, not a vanishing act. You needed a pause. I needed peace, I said. Big difference. She tried stepping closer, but I didn't move. That invisible barrier between us was thick with everything we hadn't said in years. She tried to soften her voice again. I'm not with him anymore, if that's what you're wondering. I wasn't wondering, I replied. She swallowed hard. It wasn't serious. I felt invisible. I thought maybe I needed something new. But I didn't. I needed you. I was just too stupid to see it until you were gone. Now here's the twist you wouldn't expect. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Because part of me, buried deep under the numbness, still missed the woman she used to be. The woman I cooked for. The woman I held on the bathroom floor during her panic attacks. The woman who once called me her best friend. But I also knew that version of her, the real one, hadn't shown up in a very long time. And I wasn't sure if this person in front of me now was her or just the ghost of her regret. Then she dropped the bomb. I'm pregnant. Time stopped. Like literally, I forgot to blink. My brain refused to process it. I stared at her, trying to read her face, waiting for some sign that it was a manipulation. A trap. A last-ditch attempt to rope me back in with hope or guilt. But her expression didn't shift. She looked scared. Genuine. Raw. But still. I didn't believe her. Is it mine? She blinked. Lowell, I haven't. Don't, I cut in. Don't lie again. I'm not lying. I swear. It's yours. I didn't do anything with him. Not really. It was stupid texting. Some late-night dinners. I just felt lost. I didn't sleep with anyone else. I laughed bitter, broken. That's not how this works, Hattie. You don't get to torch a marriage and then come crawling back with a story that lines up too perfectly. If it is mine, congratulations. But you're going to raise the child without pretending we're something we're not. Her shoulders dropped. She looked gutted. She whispered, You're not even going to try? I didn't answer. I just stepped back inside and closed the door. She stayed on the porch for another 10 minutes. Then she left. No words. No fight. Just the sound of her car disappearing into the trees. And me? I stood there in the cabin, the weight of everything sinking into my chest like concrete. I thought I was done with her. I thought I was free. But now there was a possibility that a part of her might stay with me forever, and I had no idea what to do with that. You think that was the end of it? Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. The silence in the cabin, once my refuge, had turned into something colder. Harsher. The wind outside scratched at the windows like it was trying to crawl in, and every time the old wood creaked, I half expected her to be back at the door. I kept seeing her face, not from the early days, but that face standing on my porch telling me she was pregnant and swearing it was mine. I didn't believe her. But I also didn't know. And that was the part that gnawed at me. Was it possible? Could it really be mine? We hadn't exactly been strangers in the weeks before she asked for that break. There were moments. Faded glimpses of intimacy that felt more like obligation than connection. But still, the timing lined up just close enough to make me wonder. That was her weapon. Not certainty. Doubt. And she knew me well enough to use it. The next morning, I made the mistake of checking my old email account. I hadn't touched it in over a month, but curiosity cracked me open. 39 unread messages. Most were junk. A few were from my job, but 12 were from her. One subject line stopped me cold, proof. I opened it. Inside was a blurry photo of a sonogram. Her name and a date scribbled across the top. No caption. No explanation. Just the image, like it was supposed to make me feel something other than confusion and a slow boiling panic. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every part of me was screaming not to get sucked back in. But that didn't stop her. She showed up again 3 days later, not at the cabin, but at my parents' house. This time she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She came with a plan. She told them we were reconciling. She told my mother I had finally come to my senses. She said we were figuring it out together. None of it was true. By the time my mom called me, she was already buzzing with cautious optimism. "Lowell, honey, I'm so glad you're taking responsibility. I know you needed space, but she's carrying your child. It's time to be a man about this." I nearly dropped the phone. "Hattie's lying," I said, my voice cracking. "We're not back together." "I never said that. She just showed up and..." "Well, she seemed pretty clear. She said you told her you needed time to process and that you were planning to come home soon." "I didn't." Silence. Then my mom's voice, softer, "Well, maybe you should." I hung up without saying another word. It was like watching her tighten a web around me, thread by thread, spinning stories in every direction while I stood there tied up in them, barely able to move. And the thing is, no one questioned her. Because I was the one who disappeared. I was the one who walked away. So it was easy to make me the unstable one. The flake. The selfish coward who left his pregnant wife and wouldn't pick up the phone. That weekend, she posted a photo online. Her hand on her stomach. A caption that read, "Sometimes love just needs to be found again. We're rebuilding. Slowly. Together." And in the comments, her friends congratulating her, saying things like, "So happy for you too, and love always wins." I stared at the screen like it was a work of fiction. Like I was watching a show about someone else's life, except it was my name in the replies. My face tagged in old photos suddenly made public again. She was building a fantasy and dragging my name through it, and people were eating it up. I knew then that staying silent wasn't going to protect me anymore. It was time to respond. But not to her. Not to my parents. Not to friends or family. I had to go deeper or find the source of all this. And the only person who could help me untangle the lies was someone I'd never thought I'd need to speak to. Trevor. Yeah, that Trevor. The man she didn't cheat with. The coworker who vanished from her story as soon as things started to spiral. I found his number. I called. He picked up on the second ring. "Lowell?" I said nothing at first. Just let the weight of his name sit between us like a loaded weapon. And then I said calmly, "She says she's pregnant. She says it's mine. I need to know when it stopped between you two." There was a pause. Then he said something that shattered everything I thought I still understood. "Stopped," he said. "We never stopped, man. Not even after she told you she wanted space." The silence that followed felt like it would bury me. I sat there, frozen, phone still pressed against my ear, Trevor's voice echoing in my head like a slow leak in a sinking ship. We never stopped. Not we did once, or we made a mistake, or even we were confused. He said it plainly, as if it were fact, as if it didn't deserve an apology. As if he wasn't talking to the husband of the woman he'd been sleeping with. I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw. "Are you telling me," I finally said, voice shaky but low, "that you were still seeing her even after she told me she needed space?" "Yeah," he muttered. "Look, man. I didn't know she hadn't told you. I figured when she asked for a break, it was done between you two. She made it sound like it was all falling apart anyway. She lied to me." I whispered, but more to myself than to him. He sighed. "I'm sorry. I really am. I know that doesn't mean much coming from me, but I thought you should know the truth. I ended the call without saying another word. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the wooden floor of the cabin. There were cigarette burns in the boards from some previous life, maybe from my uncle, maybe not. I'd always meant to sand them down. Funny, the things you forget to do when your life implodes. She'd built her entire narrative on a lie. She came to my door, eyes full of tears, stomach slightly rounded, telling me she'd never crossed that line. She begged me to believe it was mine. She stood in front of my parents and told them I was coming home. She fed the world a perfect little fairy tale comeback story. But Trevor shattered all of it in 8 syllables. I didn't cry. Not then. I was too far past that. I'd already cried when she packed her bag and said, "Let's take a break." I'd cried in the first week when I slept in the front seat of my car and wondered if I'd ever stop missing her. I cried when I saw her with him on social media, sitting at our favorite cafe like our entire marriage was a page she'd already torn out. Now, I wasn't crying. I was planning. The next morning, I packed up everything in the cabin. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't hide anymore. She'd rewritten our story without asking me, and people were reading it, believing it, while I rotted away in a silent corner of the world. I went to my parents' house first. My mom opened the door and gasped when she saw me, like she'd half believed I'd never come back. "Lowell," she started, voice soft with relief. "I need to tell you the truth," I said. We sat in the living room. No one interrupted. No one rushed. I laid it all out piece by piece. Her asking for space, me leaving, what Trevor told me, the photos, the messages, the manipulation. I told them about the voicemail she left, the visit to the cabin, the pregnancy bombshell, and how none of it added up. By the end, my dad looked like he'd swallowed a brick. My mom had tears in her eyes, but not the kind I was used to. These were angry, betrayed. "She used us," she whispered. I nodded. And then, something I never expected happened. My dad stood up, took my car keys off the table and said, "Get in. Let's go talk to her." I didn't argue. I followed. We drove to her mother's place, where she'd been staying. Her car was in the driveway. The lights were on. I could see movement through the blinds. My chest tightened as I stepped out, legs weak but locked into motion. My father walked beside me, silent but solid, like an anchor in a storm. She opened the door before we knocked, as if she'd been expecting the moment to come crashing down. "Lowell," she breathed. "I spoke to Trevor," I said. She froze, like a statue that had just realized the fire was real. "I know everything," I continued. "The truth, not your version. Not the polished lie you told my parents. Not the version you posted online. Everything." She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. My dad's presence behind me must have drained every excuse from her lips. "I'm done playing the villain in your fantasy," I said. "You don't get to decide what the story is anymore. You don't get to pretend we're rebuilding something that never even existed in your heart to begin with. You left me," she finally snapped, voice shaking. "You didn't even fight for us." "I shouldn't have had to," I said, my voice quieter than hers, but twice as sharp. "You wanted a break, and I gave it to you. You turned it into a betrayal. Then you pretended you were the one hurting." She blinked fast, trying to hold it in, but the tears still came. "I made a mistake." "No," I said. "You made a series of choices, and now I'm making mine." Then I turned and walked away. She didn't follow. She didn't scream. She didn't deny it. And maybe that silence, for the first time, meant she finally understood. But if you think that was the last time I heard from her, you'd be wrong. Because just when I thought I could start over, she did something that pulled me right back in. Something that turned the entire town against me. I didn't sleep again. You'd think after finally confronting her, after unloading every truth that had rotted inside me for months, I'd feel lighter, relieved. But I didn't. I lay awake in my old bedroom at my parents' house, staring at the same cracked ceiling I grew up under, and I felt hunted. Like I'd closed a door only to hear a window creak open behind me. I should have known better than to think she'd go quietly. The next morning started like any other. Coffee with my dad. Quiet nods, no small talk. We both thought it was done. That she'd retreat, disappear into the mess she made, and lick her wounds. But by noon, my phone lit up with a flood of missed calls and messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Are you okay? What's going on with you and Hattie? Did you really abandon her pregnant? And then came the one that stopped me cold. Bro, have you seen the post? I hadn't. Not yet. But my stomach dropped before I even opened it. She had taken to Facebook again, only this time it wasn't just a romantic little fairy tale with her hand on her stomach. It was war. She posted a long, open letter. A full-blown public eulogy of our marriage, dripping in carefully constructed half-truths and omissions. She told everyone she tried to make it work, that she begged me to talk, that I vanished after a minor disagreement, and that I'd been emotionally distant for years. She even included a photo of the sonogram again, this time with the caption. He says it's not his. But I know the truth. I just want peace for me and my baby now. The post had over 300 reactions and nearly 100 comments by the time I saw it. All her friends, people I barely knew, coworkers, old college acquaintances were in the comments dragging me like I was the villain in a soap opera. People calling me a narcissist. A coward. A deadbeat. Some woman even offered her couch to Hattie if she needed space from the toxicity. And I sat there, just staring at it. Numb. Embarrassed. Furious. But mostly stunned. She'd rewritten the narrative again, but this time for an audience. She knew what she was doing. Hattie had always been good at two things, bending the truth just enough to make herself the victim and making sure everyone around her felt like they were part of her pain. She didn't just want sympathy. She wanted a mob. I closed the app and turned my phone off. I didn't want to play her game. But not playing didn't mean I was safe. That night, someone knocked on my parents' door. It was a woman named Carrie, mutual friend, though barely. She looked uncomfortable, holding her purse like it was a shield. She didn't even say hi when I opened the door. I just want to hear your side, she said. I blinked. Why? Because Hattie's been messaging people. Directly. Telling them what you did. What you supposedly did. And I know her well enough to know there's always more to her stories. I stepped aside and let her in. For the next hour I laid it all out for her. Every single thing. From the night Hattie said she needed space, to the gaslighting, the manipulation, the pregnancy claim, and Trevor's confession. I even showed Carrie the sonogram email timestamped before Hattie ever claimed she hadn't done anything wrong. Carrie just sat there shaking her head, jaw clenched. She always said she had to protect her image. That she couldn't stand being the one who looked like she messed up, she said quietly. This isn't just about you. She's performing for the people watching. I knew that. I'd always known it. But hearing someone else say it made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. Carrie stood to leave. Before she did, she turned and said, you should say something. You can't let her keep writing your story. But here's the thing, I didn't want to go public. I didn't want my pain paraded around for likes and sympathy emojis. I didn't want to defend myself on the internet like some accused criminal issuing a press release. That's not who I am. So I did something else. I called a lawyer. Because Hattie had crossed a line now and I wasn't about to let her use her pregnancy as both a weapon and a shield. It was time to demand a paternity test. And once the truth came out, whether it was mine or not, I'd have it in writing. Documented. Legal. Something she couldn't twist. But just when I thought things were finally tipping back in my favor, she pulled the cruelest trick of all. And it involved my mother. I should have expected it. The moment I called a lawyer, the clock started ticking, not just on a legal process, but on whatever chaos Hattie would unleash next to stop me. She knew the walls were closing in. That her fantasy was starting to crumble beneath the weight of real facts and timelines. And like always, when cornered, she didn't retreat, she attacked. I was sitting on the back porch of my parents' house, phone on the table beside me, still waiting for a call back from the law office. The sun was setting through the trees, and for a second, just 1 second, I let myself believe that maybe everything would finally fall into place. I hadn't spoken to Hattie in over a week. She hadn't posted anything new. Maybe I thought she was exhausted too. Maybe she'd finally decided to stop. But peace in my life doesn't last longer than a headline. The screen door creaked open and my mom stepped outside. She was holding her phone, her fingers wrapped around it so tightly I could see the pink in her knuckles. Her eyes were wet, not with full tears, but that shimmering, trembling kind of moisture that comes before the flood. You need to come inside, she said quietly. What's going on? Your father just left to cool off. You should sit down. I followed her into the living room, already bracing for it. She handed me her phone without a word. It was a voicemail. From Hattie. Her voice was soft. Too soft. Like she was narrating a eulogy. I didn't want it to come to this. I never meant for things to spiral this way. I wanted Lowell to be involved. I wanted him to be present, to care. But instead, he's dragging me through lawyers and trying to disprove my pregnancy. I can't even sleep anymore. I'm scared. And I think the stress is affecting the baby. I'm doing this all alone. I just wanted love. I just wanted family. I never asked for war. If something happens to me, I just wanted you to know it's not what I wanted. I just wanted him to come home. I stared at the phone like it was coated in acid. My mother sat across from me, silent, her hands clenched in her lap. She made it sound like you're trying to destroy her, she whispered. Like you don't care what happens to the baby. Like you could actually hurt her. That did it. Something snapped in me. I never touched her, I said through my teeth. I never raised my voice. I walked away when she told me to. I left everything behind so she could have what she wanted. And now she's calling you, my mother, to plant fear in your head before a court can say what's real and what isn't. My voice cracked mid-sentence. Rage does that to me. It doesn't roar. It fractures. She's scared, Lowell, my mom said. No. She's manipulative, I shot back. This is what she does. She uses people's kindness. She twists love into leverage. I stood up. I couldn't sit still anymore. The walls of that house, the place that once felt like a safe haven, were now echoing with her voice. Her ghost. Her campaign. My father didn't return until late that night. When he did, he didn't say much. Just nodded once at me and poured himself a drink. But something had shifted. Even he, who'd been neutral this whole time, looked shaken. Hattie had crossed into sacred territory. My family. She couldn't win in court, so now she was trying to win in emotion. In guilt. In fear. And the scariest part was it worked. Even I felt doubt creeping in again. What if she was struggling? What if something did happen? What if I really was the villain she painted? I called my lawyer first thing in the morning. I want the paternity test expedited. Whatever the cost. He didn't ask questions. He just said he'd take care of it. But Hattie wasn't done. The next day, she filed a restraining order against me claiming emotional harassment, psychological intimidation, and unpredictable behavior. And she submitted screenshots. Fabricated ones. Texts I never sent. Conversations spliced together from months ago made to look like I'd been threatening her. Timestamps that didn't match my phone records. I didn't even recognize half of what she presented. But it didn't matter. Because the court doesn't weigh evidence in whispers. It takes time. And while time ticked away, she made sure to spread her version to everyone who'd listen. I couldn't go to the grocery store without someone side-eyeing me. A woman I'd known since grade school refused to look me in the eye. One guy I used to play softball with asked me straight up if I was spiraling. She poisoned the well before I could even speak. And yet, through it all, I kept telling myself one thing. The test will fix this. The truth will save me. The result came in 2 weeks later. I opened the envelope with hands that didn't feel like mine. I was in the back parking lot of the lawyer's office, alone. I didn't want an audience for this. Didn't want anyone to see what this moment would do to me, whether it crushed me or freed me. Inside, one page. One single, final line at the bottom. Probability of paternity, 0%. She lied. She lied to my face, to my parents, to the world. And now? Now I had proof. The page in my hands didn't feel like paper. It felt like release. Like air returning to lungs I hadn't realized were starving for it. I stood there for a long time, staring at that final line, 0%, letting it sink into the very bones of me. Every lie, every sleepless night, every whispered manipulation, all of it reduced to a simple number. Cold. Clear. Unshakable. It wasn't my child. She had tried to tether me to a life I didn't belong to an identity I had never earned. But truth, no matter how late it arrives, always carries the final word. I walked into my lawyer's office with the envelope and handed it over without speaking. He glanced at the result, nodded once, and said, "Let's make this permanent." Within days, we filed a cease and desist. Then a defamation counterclaim. I didn't want money. I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted to be done on the record in the system, free from her shadow. When the documents arrived at her doorstep, she didn't respond. No more voicemails. No public posts. No staged photos. For the first time since this all began, the noise stopped. I half expected another stunt, a final act of desperation, but it never came. Instead, her silence was the loudest apology I'd ever heard. 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Not from a lawyer. Not typed. Just a handwritten envelope with my name in that familiar, looping handwriting. No return address. I almost tossed it in the trash. But I didn't. Inside was a single note. No explanations. No defenses. You were right. About all of it. I lost something I never deserved. I'm sorry. Truly. I folded it up, placed it in a drawer, and left it there. I never wrote back. Instead, I moved forward. With the help of a counselor, I started rebuilding not just my confidence, but my understanding of love. I found peace in routine again. In mornings that didn't start with dread. In coffee that didn't go cold while waiting for another emotional ambush. And then something beautiful happened. At a bookstore downtown, I met someone. Her name was Elise. Nothing dramatic, no instant lightning strike. Just a quiet conversation about a novel we both reached for. She laughed at my terrible joke about the author. I offered her the book first. She asked if I wanted to grab tea sometime. Simple. Gentle. Real. And over time, I realized that healing didn't come all at once. It came in layers, in the way she never made me feel small for needing reassurance. In the way she listened, not to respond, but to understand. She never asked for a version of me I had to invent. She just asked for me. And one evening, as we watched the sky turn gold over a quiet lake, not the one where I was broken, but a new place, our place, she reached for my hand and said, "I don't care where you've been. I'm just glad you found your way here." So, if you're reading this and you're in the middle of it, the chaos, the doubt, the aching silence, I want you to know something. There's life after betrayal. There's peace after poison. And there's love, real love, after everything you thought was the end. I took the break she asked for. But I turned it into a beginning. And this time I chose me.